Hey guys, welcome back. Now, today we're finally going to get to talk about using formulas for finding distance, midpoint, and slope. So this is a very interesting and fun lesson. So we'll see what's going on. Now the problem is though, we have to memorize these three formulas. They're not given to us on our formula sheet for the SOL. So from here on out, you're going to need to start seeing these questions on quizzes and tests. And if you don't have these formulas memorized, you'll probably miss the question. So the distance formula, if I'm given 2 points, x1, y1, x2, y2, is this mess here, okay? We have the big square root of x minus x squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Or I just boiled it down right here to say x minus x plus y minus y, okay? So that's what we're looking for. But you have to have this memorized. From this point on, anytime I ask you a distance problem, if you don't have this formula memorized, you're going to miss it because this isn't given to us anywhere. So this problem wants us to find the distance between the 2 points, okay? So I'm going to work through how to solve it for you and how to solve it with you. If at any point you have any questions or get a little confused, please go ahead and rewind or put a little star by it so you know to ask in class tomorrow. Now this time they are nice and they give us the points. They say that we're at 4, 0 and -2, -3. Now the very first thing that I like to do is label my points. And this is the huge clue up here. This guy's an X, this is a Y, this is an X, this is a Y. So make sure you label each point has an X and a Y in it. Now, the distance formula says the square root of x minus x squared plus y minus y squared. And those parentheses are very important, and you're going to see why here in a few seconds. So, well, maybe not for this problem, but eventually. So, I have x minus x. So 4 minus a -2. You do need both negative signs, because I have a minus here for the formula, and I have a -2 here for that second x terms. So 4 minus a -2. Plus y is 0 minus a -3. And again, I do have to keep the double negative. The y, the negative sign for here, and the negative sign for that -3. So now this is where you sort of need to ask yourself, or you can go ahead and put in your calculator, what's 4 minus a -2? Well, 4 minus a -2 is the same thing as saying 4 plus 2. So 4 plus 2 gives me a 6 squared. 0 minus a -3 is the same as saying 0 plus 3, which is 3 squared. Okay? And now notice, every single step, I've brought down that big square root. Because some of us forget to bring that down and like to drop that off, and it changes the value of your answer. So I need to square both of those numbers. So 6 squared is the same as 6 times 6, which is 36. And 3 squared is 3 times 3, which is 9. Well, 36 plus 9 gives me 45. So I have the square root of 45. Okay? Now, I can talk to you later about something to do with this, but you can go ahead and leave that alone. Or if you want to, you can put it in your calculator and turn it into a decimal, which is probably close to about 6.7 or something like that. And I'll give you credit for either answer for now. Now, in the not too distant future, we're going to have to learn how to break that down another way. So make sure we pay attention for that. Now, one more time quickly. If they're nice like this and they give it to you in a coordinate plane, there's another way that you can do it. What do I have right there? I have a triangle. I have a right triangle. And even though we haven't talked about them yet, what we're going to use might come on healthy or handy for you guys to be able to use. That right there is 3 blocks long, and that's where the 3 is. And this piece right here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks long, and that's the 6. So this is what we're looking for, is the distance from those 2 points. So how would I find out what x is if I have a right triangle? Pythagorean theorem. So if in the future you forget the distance formula, plot your points and do Pythagorean theorem to figure out what that mess is. First secret phrase is Mario. Mario. 3 squared is a 9. 6 squared is a 36. That equals x squared. When I add them, I get 45. So x is the square root of 45 again. Either way works. If that way confuses you, ignore it for a few minutes, ignore it for a little while. We'll go back to it after we learn right triangles a little bit better. But some of you know Pythagorean theorem and might be able to use that a little bit better. Okay? Now I'm going to do a second example with you to help you out, hopefully to help you understand, get this stuff, and make sure we're in a good place. So I do apologize if this video runs a little long. I'll try to keep it as brief as possible, but this is extremely important material for your SOL. Again, step one is label your points. We have an x and a y, we have an x and a y. Each point has to have an x coordinate, and the second one's the y coordinate. The distance formula, again, says x minus x squared plus y minus y squared. Now, you don't have to write it down every single time, but I will, because it helps me plug in, and it helps some of you guys see what goes where. So I have x minus x. So I have 2 minus 2 squared plus y minus y. Negative 1 minus 5 squared. Now, pay attention to this, please. Negative 1 minus 5. The last time we had double negatives both times. Minus a negative, minus a negative. That's because our second term in both of them was a negative. That's why we needed a double negative that time. I don't need a double negative this time. Okay, I can have negative 1 minus 5. Well, 2 minus 2 I know gives me a 0 squared. And negative 1 minus 5 gives me a negative 6 squared. If you owe me $1 and then you borrow 5 more from me, you owe me 6. Now notice these parentheses here, and that's where I said they're going to be important very, very soon. Second secret phrase, slick. Slick. So, 0 squared, 0 times 0, and that's just 0. Negative 6 squared. Now this is where I have to be careful and make sure I use my parentheses. Because if you put this into your calculator is going to spit that out. Negative 6 squared. Okay? Because what you're telling the calculator is you're telling the calculator, do 6 times 6, which is 36, and then make your answer negative. If you put the parentheses, then you're telling your calculator to do negative 6 times negative 6. And a negative times a negative is always a positive. And that's the one that we want. So negative 6 squared is going to give me a positive 36. Now 0 plus 36 is just 36. And I know that the square root of 36 is exactly 6 because that's a perfect square. So that's what I'm looking for that problem, and that's my distance between those 2 points. Now again, if it helps, you might be able to plot it and just count this time because you really won't have a right triangle because we had a 0. But that's how we need to do that. So that's your distance formula. Please make sure you have this memorized from this day forward. You may want to put them on flashcards, or I'll update and try to make some flashcards for us somewhere because this is something you need to know, and when we start having formula quizzes, they are fair game for the formula quizzes. Now here's your practice problem, so just follow along through my example and see what happens for those 2 problems before. Now we're talking about midpoint. Now again, midpoint uses x1, y1, x2, y2. So the midpoint is x plus x, or x2 plus x1 divided by 2, y2 plus y1 divided by 2. Or if it's easier for you to remember, x plus x divided by 2, y plus y divided by 2. So that's what we're looking for there. Okay, we're again looking for all we're really looking for is the average. We're looking for what point is directly in the middle. So again, they're nice, they give us the points. Negative 2, comma negative 3, 4, comma 0. Now notice I've changed which one was the first one and which one was the second. It really doesn't matter. Okay, it really doesn't matter which one's y1, x1 and y2, x2. Okay, now label your points. This guy's an x, this is a y, this is an x, this is a y. Okay, so my midpoint formula again says x plus x over 2, y plus y over 2. Third secret phrase, Aldo. Aldo. Okay, so plug in here. Okay, negative 2 plus 4, that's exactly what I write. Negative 2 plus 4 divided by 2. Negative 3 plus 0. X plus x, y plus y. Now do your math. So negative 2 plus 4 gives me a positive 2 divided by 2. Because if you owe me $2 and then you have 4 in your pocket, that means you have 2 to spend because you're paying me back. Negative 3 plus 0 is negative 3 divided by 2. Negative 2 divided by 2 I know is a positive 1. And then negative 3 over 2, I'm going to leave it alone. But if you want to say that's negative 1.5, that's perfectly acceptable as well. But I prefer to work in terms of fractions because I'm a math nerd like that. So 1 comma negative 3 and a half. Or sorry, negative 3 halves. So if I go over 1 and down 1 and a half, then that point should be right in the middle of those two lines, or those 2 points. And in fact, it does look like it is. Now we could prove it by doing the distance formula twice, but I won't put you through that much punishment. Now, again, midpoint formula you need to have memorized from this point on. So just like the distance formula, midpoint formula is extremely important. So x minus x squared plus y minus y squared, the square root of that, and then x plus x over 2, y plus y over 2. So we have another example again for me to work through with you, and I'll be more than happy to do that to help you out. This guy's an x, this is a y, this one's an x, this one's a y. Okay? So my midpoint formula again says x plus x over 2, y plus y over 2. Now I put parentheses up here so you remember to do the addition on top first. Okay, so I didn't write that down the last time and I didn't do it this time because I remember to do that, and that's how I'll do the math. But those parentheses, make sure that you remember to do the addition first. So my x's are negative 1 and 7. So negative 1 plus 7 divided by 2. And my y's are 3 and negative 1 divided by 2. So negative 1 plus 7 gives me a 6 divided by 2. 3 plus a negative 1 gives me a 2 divided by 2. Now this time I get some nice easy math. So 6 divided by 2 is a 3. 2 divided by 2 is a 1. So that's your answer for this problem. So 6 comma 2, 2 comma 2. It boils down to be 3 comma 1. So that's what I'm looking for our midpoint that time. Add the x's, divide them by 2. Add the y's, divide them by 2. And this is our answer. We're looking for the midpoint. So we don't add these together and say the answer is 4. No, the answer is 3 comma 1 because I want to be able to plot the point just like I did here and make sure that it's right in the middle of those 2 given points. So we don't do anything else. This is our answer. We're done. Let's move on to the next problem. So again, practice problem for you for midpoint. Add the x's, divide by 2. Add the y's, divide by 2. Now, this one's a little bit tricky, okay? But it's still a midpoint problem. It wants me to find the endpoint of a segment that begins at 2 comma 4. So as best as I can, I'm going to plot the point 2 comma 4. And that's point R. And has a midpoint of 5 comma 0. So that's this point right here. So that's the S. We need to find the other endpoint. Okay, we need to find out what the other endpoint is. So the other endpoint is going to be down here somewhere, sort of in that area. Okay, I don't know exactly where, but that's where it's going to be. Okay, now this is a slightly different problem because this time I already know the midpoint. Okay, I already know what the midpoint of this line is. So I don't want to calculate the midpoint because I have it. My best way I can tell you to do it, or at least the easiest way, is to try to set up and use a number line. So R is sitting at 2 comma 4. S is in the middle at 5 comma 0. And we need to find this point out here. Okay? So we need to use a number line and try to ask ourselves some questions. Okay? So we're going to ask ourselves, self, what do I need to do to go from 2 to 5? Well, I know that I have to add 3. Because 2 plus 3 puts me at 5. It's either addition or subtraction. We don't worry about any multiplications for this type. So 2 plus 3 puts me at a 5. So I want to do that again. So 5 plus 3 puts me at an 8. Okay? So that's my x coordinate. Find out what's going on. I can't calculate the midpoint because that would tell me this point right here. I want to go all the way over here. Fourth secret phrase, Joey Orso. Joey Orso. Okay? Now, what do I need to do to go from 4 to 0? Well, that one's easy. Let me subtract 4. So let's do that again. 0 minus 4 puts me at a negative 4. Okay? So that's what I'm saying my answer is. At least that's my guess for what my answer is. Now, I can check my work by using the midpoint formula. Okay? I can use the midpoint formula and my endpoints and see what the midpoint of those 2 points are going to be. So this is an x and a y, this is an x and a y. So the midpoint says x plus x, so 2 plus 8 divided by 2, y plus y, so 4 plus a negative 4 divided by 2. Well, 2 plus 8 is 10 divided by 2, 4 plus a negative 4 is 0 divided by 2, 10 divided by 2 is 5, 0 divided by 2 is 0. And that's what I want. I want to make sure that I end up with the midpoint that I'm given. Okay? Now, I understand this might be a tricky problem. I understand this could be confusing. But believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, this is the easiest way I could show you how to do it. Okay? If I try to show you how to use algebra, you might lose your minds. Okay? So let's learn this way. Again, it's the very first time we've seen it. It'll get easier with some practice. Okay? So all I did was I asked myself, what do I do to go from an end point to my midpoint? So look at your x coordinates first. So to go from 2 to 5, I added 3. So I do that all over again. Let me add that 3 again. So 5 plus 3 puts me at an 8. To go from 4 to 0, look at my y's this time, I need to subtract 4. So just do that again. 0 minus 4 puts me at a negative 4. Now notice, if I plot that point, 8, negative 4, I'm right inside that circle that I said. This is where my answer is. I don't know where, but I knew it was in that circle somewhere. And sometimes, if you can at least ballpark, you might be able to eliminate some answer choices for a multiple choice test and be able to narrow it down. Okay? So be able to use that estimation skill. Now, here's your practice. Rewind back. Watch how I did it the first time. See if you can set it up. Okay? This time the end point is C and the midpoint is B. Okay? So set it up exactly the same way. I'm not going to give you a clue this time. You need to know how to do this one on your own. Last up, talking about slope. Okay, we talked about slope last year in Algebra 1, so here it goes again. Slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, or y minus y over x minus x. Or, if you want to remember that it's rise over run. Now, yes, I know I misspelled rise. I used the y on top, so you remember that the y's go on the top, and x's go on the bottom. Now, this time, they give us the points. -2, -3, 4, 0. Label your points. I have an x, I have a y, I have an x, I have an y. So slope is y minus y. So -3 minus 0. If -3 is my first y, -2 has to be my first x. The other two, the order really doesn't matter. You could switch them up if you want to. But this time I have to keep the same order. So -3 minus 0, -2 minus 4. Again, I don't have a double negative sign this time because this 4 is a positive. Well, I know -3 minus 0 is just a -3. -2 minus 4 is a -6. We have to reduce our fractions. Okay, you cannot leave it alone like this. You have to reduce your fractions. So I know that they both have a negative, which will make it a positive 3 over 6. And I have to define a number that divides both 3 and 6 evenly. And it turns out to be Now, we have graphing calculators in the classroom. I might be able to show you an easier way to reduce your fractions when we see you next time. But for right now, make sure that you just know how to divide that and see how that breaks down. Now, another way, if you remember, is you could do your rise over your run. So we went up 3, we rose 3, and we ran 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 3 rise over run, and it reduces down to be a positive 1/2 again. Okay, so that's what we're looking for that problem, to make sure we get that all squared away. So it doesn't matter which way you do it, if you use the graph or if you use this. And this is an equals and this is a positive 1/2. So this is still positive 1/2, so I got the same. And use your cheats, okay? Cheat a little bit. If you see that that has a positive slope, know that your slope's going to have to be positive. Okay? Ooh, this one's your practice. Okay, so I don't think I'm doing another one with you. So make sure you guys pay attention to that. Go back. 5th secret phrase, Louis dumps. Louis dumps. Okay, so you have some additional practice problems this time. So this time it's giving you a clue of what it wants you to find. Okay, this time again it's giving you a clue. And this time is a clue. Okay, now notice, slope is usually going to be in a fraction form. Midpoint problems, your answers will always look like this. They will be a point. They will be an x, comma, a y. And your distance formulas will usually have decimals or some ugly numbers that look like this. Okay? That's your big clue because of that square root. So here, if you see something like that, it's a distance. If you see something like that, it's a midpoint. And if you see something like that, it's a slope. Again, you have to have these 3 formulas memorized from now until the end of the school year. So the sooner you learn them, the better you'll do on your quiz on this material, the better you'll do on your test, the better you'll do on your formula quizzes. So make sure you get these memorized and don't try to fight it because you eventually have to do it. I hope you folks have a great night. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please bring any questions to class next time, and we'll see you then.